Now, this is what I'm talking about. There has been a lot of talk about the Habs and their big need for a 2C moving forward, and one name that has recently surfaced from the Seattle Kraken, though not a full-time center, has had a lot of experience there and scored 40 goals just 2 years ago. We have to dive into the reports on Jared McCann out of Seattle and how this could be a sneaky great fit for Montreal, but it doesn't end there. We also have some comments from Jeff Gorton at a recent appearance on the Basu and Godin notebook, where he outlines the struggles with the rising cap and how that has big implications on a certain Montreal Canadien going forward. And finally, some highlights from Alexander Zharovsky and some quotes from a former NHL coach that really make me smile about the Habs' future. We got a lot of stuff to get into on this episode of Habs Digest, and we'll start with Zharovsky. And you know what? We'll just start with running these highlights. There's a 3-on-3 tournament going right now. He scores a beauty of a goal right here. Oh, what a little move from him. He also has a nice little no-look pass for an assist. His team is advancing. A nice 1+1 in this game. Really exciting stuff. It's not something that I've watched a whole lot of. The smaller rink is really intriguing, so keep an eye out on Zharovsky as he's pulling off some crazy stuff all over the place. But I want to dive into something from Bob Hartley. Yeah, you know the name. We all know the name Bob Hartley, and I'll link the RDS article down below where he makes these comments. But he had some very good things to say about not only Zharovsky, but also the Habs' future with Russian scouting. He goes, look, I've had a few reports about him. Now, this is translated from French, so it's not perfect, but I think it's pretty good. I changed some words in there that, my translator didn't quite get, but I've had a few reports about him, and I've heard some very nice things. Obviously, I haven't been there in Russia for the last 3 years, though I believe he did just accept a contract over there to coach. Could be wrong. But I've kept in touch with a number of people involved in hockey. Alexander has a lot of talent and a lot of speed. And look, talent and speed is something that we know about, right? We're talking about a guy that is straight up one of the most skilled players in this draft. You could say gifted players in this draft. You've seen a lot of people go out there and say his puck handling skills right up there at the top of this class. Some people having him as number one. Now, that's maybe a bit tough to say when a lot of his play has come against MHL opponents, which is, not always the best way to judge, though it certainly was for Ivan Demidov, but Zharovsky no doubt has all the skill in the world, and to hear people like, I know Bob Hartley's just one person in a sea of people praising Alexander Zharovsky, but it's really cool to see. But his other comment on the Habs and their positioning to go forward, I mean, look, it's something we all kind of know, but I want to dive into it as well. Where he said that there's no doubt with Nick Bobrov and his father, Nick Bobrov's father, not Zharovsky's father, of course, Nick Bobrov and Nick Bobrov's father, working with SK in St. Petersburg, the Habs are well placed to keep an eye on all the young Russian talent. And yeah, Nick Bobrov's father, I believe, is a scout or works in some capacity for SK St. Petersburg. And, we keep talking about the Habs' ability to scout Russian, and maybe even this year, Belarusian with our new goalie, our boy Radkov, Arseny Radkov. Who knows? He could be pretty good. He's coming over to North America. You remember in the Q. He's coming to the Q League this year, to the NCAA with UMass just after that. Hey, if you didn't know that, you got to watch our daily videos because we've talked about him a few times. But I just love this. Look, it's something we know, of course, the Habs' ability to scout these Russian prospects, but it puts a lot of faith. Like, I have a lot of faith, especially in the Habs front office. Like, we had Zharovsky going first round. A lot of teams clearly didn't because we were able to trade up and snag him in the second. But I believe that we have better intel than most other teams on guys like this, which is why I'm just so excited for the future. So just wanted to highlight that to start off the video. Some feel-good stuff from the Russian guys, and we are going to get into the good stuff, the Jared McCann stuff, but in just a little bit, because I want to dive in first to Jeff Gorton and what he had to say. Now, he didn't directly mention Lane Hutson in this, but look, that's the elephant in the room. That Lane Hutson extension is looming. It's going to happen sometime between now and next offseason. He's going to extend. The question is the term. The question is the AAV. Will it be a bridge deal? Will it be an 8-year deal? Will it be above $10 million, below? We don't really know yet. But I thought Jeff Gorton's comments on the whole situation were very interesting because he was asked, again, in the Basu and Godin notebook, I'm going to link Arber Basu's Athletic article down below that has the quotes that I was taken from. But if you are a paid subscriber of the Basu and Godin notebook, you can actually watch the full 65-minute interview, which is really worth it. So go check it out. But I want to dive into this here. And Jeff's comments are very interesting to me. Now, we highlighted some of his other stuff about trades yesterday, but look, I'm not going to read this whole thing because it's a lot of text, but just to get the gist, like, look, the cap's going up, and he said the agents are always saying, look, it's the percentage. But the agents don't have to run a team. They're not in the room. They don't understand that if a guy walks back into the room making a lot more money than that guy over there, how does that make sense? So on the team side, it's a little harder. And I think this is a great quote, and he expands upon it here, saying, look, you're trying to manage all these things. You don't want a lesser player walking in, making way more money than another guy. Like, it's real. It absolutely is real. So for those things, when agents argue for the percentage of the cap, percentage, it can be a little too much for me. I guess I did read all of it, didn't I? I said I wasn't going to. Sorry, I lied to you. I wanted to read it all. And I think this is very interesting. Again, like, you look at the Habs cap structure right now, you look at the money tied up in the forwards, and especially the defense, which I don't think I have a picture of the defense here, but look, we know Matheson, just under $5 million expiring. Dobson now locked up for 9.5. Guhle locked in for 5.5. But I think his comments on the salary, especially for the forwards, makes a big difference, right? Because Laine is making more than a lot of these guys, but not a lot more. I think what he's kind of saying is you look at our forward core, and if a guy comes in, we trade for a 2C, and this 2C, needs to sign an extension or, whatever it is, just hypothetical. They're making like $11 million. Then it's like the players aren't thinking in terms of percentage of the cap. Your players are thinking, I make 8 million. Why is this guy making 12? Stuff like that. And I think that's where Jeff Gorton actually has a very good point. Because when you're dealing with player agents, you're talking about a guy like Lane Hutson. His agent might say, look, in 2-3 years, the percentage of the cap that we're asking for is going to be the same as what, say, Suzuki or Caufield extended for. But that would have Hutson making like 11 million, right? Which is a drastic difference from everyone else on this entire team. So when I'm looking at a Lane extension, I start to think, the Habs seem to be pretty conservative here. Now, again, with the culture of the team, Dobson taking a discount to come here, that whole first line that we know so well, making below 8 million, I think that will help the Habs in negotiations. I don't anticipate Lane Hutson's going to be like, yeah, give me my money or else I'm leaving. You never really know, but he really doesn't seem like that kind of guy. So it's actually really interesting to paint that picture between agents and front office and how this could actually cause a conflict going forward. Look, we already know Struble has filed for arbitration. I'm wondering if there's something going on there. Again, I'm not worried about that. I know some people are. I know it can be a bad sign, but anyway, I just got this interesting feeling that this Hutson deal might not happen as soon as we thought, because Jeff Gorton saying these things, clearly it's something they're talking about, right? Agents like, give me the percentage. So we'll have to wait and see, but let me know your thoughts on what his comments mean for a Hutson extension down below, because I think it's very interesting. But final topic here today. Now, you might have seen this floating around earlier. I thought I saw a video on YouTube of this, and look, I thought we'd be the first people on this, but apparently not. But I'm very, very interested in talking about Jared McCann and some deeper things about him, because the big report today was from Chris Johnston. This is from NHL Rumor Report, which is one of the best follows on Twitter. Chris Johnston, Seattle might be compelled to move someone like Jared McCann. And that's pretty much it, but there have been other rumors out there saying, like, Seattle, we've seen them get a bit younger, but they also traded for Mason Marchment. They're in a weird spot right now where they do have one of the better prospect pools in the league. I think in the recent Byron Bader top prospect pools, I think they were ranked 3rd or 4th or top 5, somewhere in there. Very, very good prospect pool, not to mention good young talent, and of course Shane Wright, Matty Beniers, and lots of other great players. So they're a young team who's looking maybe towards the future, and Jared McCann doesn't necessarily fit their timeline. But Jared McCann is a great player from Hockey Ice Storm here. High energy, goal scorer, power play sniper, but can go cold in stretches and needs more physical strength. Look, he's 29 years old. He is what he is. He is not that super physical guy, which is, I know, a little tough to hear as a Habs fan, considering we want maybe a 2C that can be physical, though we did just bring in Bolduc, so who knows. But 29 years old with a 5 million AAV, he's a high-end ad for a contending team. And now I don't anticipate Montreal and this roster being a contending team this year, as in, like, a team that I consider likely to go far in the playoffs. I expect us to make the playoffs. I don't necessarily expect a cup run. I don't think that's crazy, but you really never know with a team this young with the crazy development we'll be getting. But when you're talking about a guy like McCann, we talk a lot about these bridge solutions for 2C, right? And whether we should go for a long-term guy at 2C or a bridge solution. And it's always tough because, like Jeff Gorton said, I mean, the secondary market can really evolve. Jared McCann is one of these examples. He's a guy that's maybe now more on the trade block than he was before, so it could make sense for Montreal. The thing with him is that for his production, his contract is really, really good. Like this past season, 22 goals, 61 points, and only 17 minutes on ice per game, 82 games. 62 points with 29 goals the year before. He had a few power play goals in each of these. 40 goals just 2 years ago for the Seattle Kraken, right? You go 27, 40, 29, 22, and he's still like in his prime right now, and he's under contract for 2 more years. It'd be this season and next season at $5 million. Now, the caveat with him is that he has rarely played full-time center in the league. You can see he doesn't really take that many faceoffs. He has some seasons, like in his 40-goal season, where he was primarily a winger. That was when he's put up his best numbers, is when he has been primarily a winger. However, even as a guy who played chunks of center, you can see, like, you know, he's not taking nearly as many faceoffs as like a Suzuki or an Evans, but he can still take them. And he's a left-hand shot, right? So being able to take faceoffs as a left-hand shot on a $5 million cap hit when you're a perennial like 20 to 30 goal scorer is what I would say, with that maybe 40 goal outlier year, when you have a chance to play with an Ivan Demidov. I don't know. I think it could be a very good fit. And look, I'm not necessarily saying, oh yeah, guaranteed he'll be above Dach. Maybe in the short term he would be. But I also don't mind the idea of moving Dach to the wing, or Newhook fully to the wing. Dach the 3C, right? Some interesting stuff can be done with the lineup. You maybe bump Sammy Blais out of the lineup. I don't know who you'd have to trade to get Jared McCann, because I imagine he won't be cheap, because a lot of contending teams are going to want him. But I don't know if this is a hot take. I think this makes a lot of sense. If we are okay taking a bridge deal on a center, or a bridge solution on a center, because let's be honest, we want a center who can grow with this young core. And I'm not saying, but we're probably still gonna have a lot of comments saying that I didn't say this, but like, I'm not saying this is the ideal solution. I'm not saying this is plan A. I'm not even saying this is plan B. But if you can't get that 2C who's young, who fits the core for a long term, like a Mason McTavish, you can't get that, that's fine. Let's go to plan B. Maybe a veteran on a 1-year deal. Maybe that's something you're more considering, who's better at faceoffs. Okay, so maybe plan B. Yeah, it's not really none of that coming to fruition. A Jared McCann on a team-friendly deal for 2 years, who can score goals and play a bit of center, while you can also like play Dach on his line if you want, right? Dach can still take faceoffs. You don't have to always have McCann taking them. You can platoon those guys taking faceoffs, kind of like what Monahan and Dach did, right? So there's some ideas there, and I don't think it's a bad idea. Again, plan A, not necessarily. Plan B, maybe, but I don't think it's a bad fit. So I'd keep an eye out there. I don't know if Montreal is going to be out there kicking tires on him right away, but he does, to me, fit the bill of a left-hand shot center who can play top 6, left-hand shot forward, who can play center, who can play top 6 minutes and produce in them. So very interesting to me, but I'd love to hear what you guys have to say down below, because it's an interesting time of year. There's a lot of stuff going on and all these players hitting the market. The secondary market's evolving fast, and hey, we're here to cover all the latest stuff, but that'll do it for this episode of Habs Digest. If you enjoyed, leave a like, comment, subscribe to the channel. Thank you for tuning in every single day. You guys have been supporting like crazy, and we could not possibly appreciate it more. I've been your host, Josh Gosse, and I'll catch you in the next one.